As self-employed independent music teachers, we have a lot of responsibilities. And, it comes with a lot of perks, right? Hey, we get to set our own schedules, we get to do all these kinds of things. But the responsibilities section of it, especially when it comes to money, can sometimes feel a little bit overwhelming. And so this week, we're going to examine a really important question that was posed by a couple of our savvy listeners. And the question is, how can we prepare ourselves for a situation that requires us to stop working? There can be many, many things that may require us to put a pause on life, right? It could be health issues, both physical and mental. It could be issues with family. It could be injuries or accidents. It could be just a series of unfortunate and unforeseen events. And preparing for those things is important. But oftentimes, as someone who is in charge of so many things, as I said at the top, you are responsible for a lot of things. It's often an overlooked item because we hold certain beliefs around things. We think that because I'm okay right now, I will continue to be okay in the future. Or we think I don't make enough money to prepare for something like this. Or it could be that, hey, I just don't know how to get started with this, so I'm going to push this down the list of importance. So today what we're going to be doing is talking about this. We're going to talk about emergency funds. We're going to talk about how to plan and deal with an emergency that may arise. So we're going to be looking at a couple of things. We're going to be looking at some small but brave and mighty steps that we can take in order to prepare ourselves financially if you were to have to stop working for whatever reason. And so we're going to be looking at money today. All right. So before we get into this, I'm going to do a little behind the scenes action, and I will be right back. Here we go. So welcome to the broadcast this week. If you are tuning in either live or on the replay, let me know where you're tuning in from. And I'd love to know where are you in the process of preparing yourself for some type of an emergency. Like I mentioned earlier, there can be so many different types of unforeseen things that happen in our lives. It could be illness. It could be, a family member being ill, accidents, all these things, just unfortunate events. And sometimes, we think, okay, it's not going to happen to me. But I've seen this happen to other people. It's happened to me. And so what we want to look at today is we're going to get real serious around how we can prepare for the unexpected, how we can start building emergency funds. We're going to look at exactly how to do that today. But before we get to that, let's say hello to everyone, and we'll do a quick housekeeping. So I see Pete's tuning in. Julie's tuning in from sunny and warm Pittsburgh, which is a shock right now because you just never know what kind of weather we're going to have. Elizabeth's tuning in from central New York. Amy is at the Walmart pickup. Sweet. Gotta love the pickup. Yes, exactly. Julie's like, I know from experience, I never saw closing my studio in January due to surgery. Wasn't in the plans, right? Wasn't in the plans. Exactly. Amy said, I had to stop to homeschool and keep the studio running. Plans are important. So, whatever the issue is that causes you to maybe stop working for a little while, whatever it is, it's time to prepare. And so I thought I'd start today, housekeeping first. If you hear something that's valuable today, let us know with the hashtag takeaway down below. I'll be, if you're live here, I'll bring it up on the screen. It's always fun to, throw those into the conversation. If you're watching this later on, know that I'd love to have conversations with you. If you are watching on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. I'm excited. I think I can't remember how many subscribers we are over there, but it keeps growing and it makes me really excited. So be sure to subscribe, turn on all notifications. And we do have the Savvy Sara bot set up for you today. And she's going to be giving you a link to a resource that I really like. So if you are on Facebook, If you drop the word funds down below, you will get a hold of the resource that I'm talking about today. If you're watching on Instagram, just let us know that you want to get a hold of that. Hey, Jaden Collected Music is watching over there. If you are on Instagram, drop the word. We'll make sure that we get that out to you. And if you are on YouTube, please look for the link. It is pinned in the live chat. Will also be added to the description of this video after we are done today. All right, so I see lots of funds coming down below. That's great. I love that y'all are interested in this. Hey there, Jana, tuning in from sunny Chicago. It's good stuff. All right, so let's get moving today. Oh, if you think that this conversation, look at me pointing with my pen. If you think this conversation would be something that's valuable to a friend or a colleague, let them know about this. You can share it with them. And, these conversations, they're free. And, the more the merrier. So I'm really glad to be able to put these presentations together to help our community. So let's do this. I wanted to start with, for those of you who get the email reminders, you noticed that I had a bit of an introduction into this today because I was thinking, just happens to be National Citrus Sunkissed Day or something like that. So it tied in beautifully with the question that I posed. The question is this: will you be able to create lemonade? Now, you all have heard it's kind of like a trite saying nowadays, of course. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Well, let's think about this and break it down for a second, right? First off, not everybody likes lemonade, right? And also, you can't just make lemonade from only lemons. That's called lemon juice. And while some people do like lemon juice just by itself, I would guess that the majority of people need more than just lemon juice. So when life hands us lemons, the question is this: are you going to have what you need in order to make lemonade? For some people, you might just need water and a little bit of sugar or whatever kind of sweetener, stevia you prefer. That might be okay for you. Or maybe you're the kind of person who would prefer to have a fancy lemonade. And so you might want to have things like carbonated water, maybe some lavender or blueberries or something fancy. Whatever you want in your lemonade, you get to make that choice. And so I'm kind of thinking of emergency funds as the ability to make lemonade. What kind of lemonade do you want to be able to make? Is the plain Jane lemonade going to get you by? Great. Are you feeling like, you know what? I don't want just plain Jane lemonade. I want to be able to make fancy lemonade when life hands me lemons. Then we're going to have to plan for that. So that's what we're looking at today. We're going to be looking at, these little steps that we can take in order to get started building an emergency fund if you have not done that already. And we're going to look at some number crunching tools that you can use to help us kind of determine what we need. And let me make sure that my screen share is set up correctly because I am going to be doing a little bit of screen sharing. So I'd love to know from those watching, all right, poll. It's not an official poll. You're just going to have to, comment down below. What kind of lemonade do you want to be able to make? Plain Jane is fine. There is nothing wrong with that. Or if you want to make fancy lemonade, we're going to talk about that too. So let me know what kind of what you want to put in your lemonade today. And let's get down to, breaking this down. So, hey there, Christina, tuning in from Michigan. Nice to see you. Let's get to the details today. So we're going to break this down in 3 steps, and I've kind of got an additional step that we're going to add at the end. It's something that, I thought, ooh, let's just add this just in case. I want to preface this whole conversation by saying I am not a financial advisor. If any of you have ever been to my website, savvymusicstudio.com, little plug there, you'll notice that, like, with the disclaimers and terms and conditions, I very clearly state, not a lawyer, not a financial advisor. I also don't play the ukulele, all that kind of stuff. But I do want to say that what I have been doing is doing doing research about how we can help people get started. And I will say that I encourage all of you, if you are going to be starting an emergency fund, talk to your financial advisor first, to make sure that you're getting everything in line. Okay, this is great. We got our first answer about lemonade. Elizabeth says raspberry lemonade. Maybe with some ginger to jazz it up, inspired by a local eatery. Ooh, that sounds really good. That sounds really good. Karen wants a little bit of strawberry flavored liquid IV. I didn't know about liquid IV. My husband just bought some last week. Pete also says, not a doctor. There you go. Hey, there's Susan from Toledo. So nice to see you. Okay, let's get to the points here. I have rambled long enough. Laura, this is a really good point. I'm glad you said this. She says, I would love fancy, but I'm not sure that I can afford that though. Right? Well, let's break some things down, right? And maybe, when we think about, I might not be able to afford fancy at first, but if I'm consistent with building this fund, maybe down the line, that could be something that that could happen. All right. So the first step when it comes to building an emergency fund. Let me actually just define what I mean by emergency fund. So an emergency fund is a savings that is specifically set aside for that kind of a catastrophe emergency that happens in order that is going to require you to stop working. I am not talking about a car repair fund. That's something different. That's what we might call like a rainy day fund, right? For those unexpected costs. We are talking about an emergency fund that can be used for, 3 to 6 months if you had to stop working and you were not bringing in income. Okay, that's the first thing. So our first step here is if you're going to create an emergency fund, you got to know your budget first. So before you can calculate that fund and what you need to have in it, you need to know what your budget requires. So, some basic steps to doing this, we've got to calculate our income, our expenses, our debts to understand the current financial situation. This may involve using spreadsheets, calculators, budgeting apps. There's so many good budgeting apps out there. Some way to track the income and expenses and set financial goals. I would love to know from those who are listening, if you use some type of a budgeting app, let us know what that is. Let us know what you like about it. I know there are so many different types out there that can help you. Or if you just want to go old school, let's hear it for Excel sheets. Right? If you've got a good Excel sheet that's set up with the right calculations and formulas, that can work wonderfully. But the idea is we can't actually know what we're going to need for 3 to 6 months unless we have a really good handle on what we're actually spending and what is coming in. And now this budget is going to look different for everyone. If you are by yourself, living by yourself, your budgetary needs are going to be a lot different than somebody who has a family with 3 kids. Or it's going to be a lot different than somebody who runs a multi-teacher studio, and that opens up a whole different conversation. So starting out with, figuring out what is it that I actually need, very, very important. Karen says, hey, pencil and paper. Elizabeth says Excel and paper. Would love to know if anyone else here is using some type of a specific budgeting app. So once we can get clear on the numbers, right? We understand what's coming in, what's going out, and if there's any debts involved in that, and we get a clear idea of our numbers, then we can start setting our financial goals. And we can also then having that budget is just so empowering, right? We can review it regularly and you can adjust your spending habits as needed. And I do think that a lot of people avoid this part of running a business and running your life because numbers feel scary. And I'll just add a little bit of encouragement here. Numbers are power. Sure, you might get some bad news once you run those numbers, but you won't be able to fix things until you know what those numbers are. And so if the idea of creating a budget makes you want to vomit, it's okay. I understand that. That's all right. It is a hard step, but it is something that is necessary. And if we do want to create an emergency fund, we have to understand our budget first. Here, like Lisa. Hey, Lisa, so nice to see you. She has a budgeting app suggestion. It's called Every Dollar. It's easy to use and update throughout the month. That's great. Christina says she uses Rocket Money. I haven't gotten to actually understanding the budget yet. Want to vomit? Hey, you're not alone. I know everybody. Look, math anxiety is real. I come from a family of 4 girls, right? I'm the oldest. If number 2 Michaela saw this broadcast, she would just be chuckling because, she has a PhD in math, not the math that deals with numbers, the math that like deals with really cool, crazy stuff. Okay. So anyway, here we go. Like there's a little snowboarder on YouTube that has the hashtag do it scared. Yes. Jana says we use you need a budget. YNAB, right? I've seen that as a really popular one as well. So you're going to start with your budgetary needs. That's the first thing. And let's move on to the second item here. The second item is this. Once we have an idea of our budget and what we would need, how much do we need for a month? What do we need in order to meet all of the living expenses, business expenses, etc. Then you're going to use a calculator or some type of a, calculating app to figure out what you would need in order to survive and thrive for 3 to 6 months, right? There's a really great calculator that you can use for this. It's just one of many, and I find it, it's nice and simple and intuitive. So I thought I would actually screen share this here to give you an idea of, math does not have to be too scary. So let me prep this screen share here. This is a really great resource. It's nerdwallet.com. And I will send you, if you want to get a hold of this website that I'm going to screen share in just a second here, I will send you a link to this if you want. Let me make sure that I'm not going to accidentally screen share something that I don't mean to. I think we should be fine. This should go directly to Chrome. Let's see. Hooray! I did it correctly. Okay, so here is an emergency fund calculator. And basically what they're doing here is they're leading you through, here are some things that you may want to consider when you're building an emergency fund. Now, this just has 8 items in it. This probably isn't as comprehensive as you may want. So as you go through here, and I am crunching random numbers. So let's say, we've got our monthly rent. Utility payments. Oh boy, those are a lot higher than we realize. We're going to put, let's say 700. I don't know. Telecom payments. This one is separate. So your phone, your cable, your internet. Don't forget to include all of those, weird subscriptions that you have to Netflix and Hulu and all that stuff. Though at that point you may need to kind of simplify. So we're going to say around 200. I think I'm estimating way too low. Insurance payments, including car, health, and home, any of those types of things. Let's say, all right, transportation costs, car payment, gas, public transit, all of that good stuff. Again, plugging random numbers in here. If you have debt payments that need to be taken care of on a monthly basis, putting those in here. And you know what? I have to say, remember, not all debt is bad. So don't feel ashamed if you have debt, right? Okay, we're going to put that in here. Monthly grocery expenses, etc. Again, plugging the numbers. Okay, so here we go. Also, they have a section for other expenses, and you can add more into this. So let's say that, if you wanted to add, I'm trying to think of things if you have cats or dogs, some kind of a pet that you may need to take to the vet occasionally, things like that. All of these things you can add so some of those other things in there. So let's say that we're going to go ahead and add another $850 to this. There we go. It adjusted. Okay. So what they have now given us is this represents 6 months of very basic living expenses, right? So this gives us something to work towards, right? Now, your living expenses may be totally different, right? As I mentioned earlier, everybody's living expenses are different, and that was just random numbers that we were plugging. But having something like this, having some type of a way to crunch the numbers can feel very, very empowering. Okay, Lisa, this is great. Following up on every dollar, there are ways in the app to track your debts as well as your emergency fund. It makes it easy to see clearly when I am in the process. That's great, Lisa. Thank you for sharing that resource. I like that. So again, if you do want to get a hold of that particular resource that I just sent out, if you drop the word funds down below, or YouTubers, if you look for the link in the description, or otherwise you can get a hold of that. Let's continue on here. So now we've figured out like we've crunched the numbers and we've looked at what we might need for X amount of time. Now what? Okay, so let's talk about some basics of building your emergency fund. Okay, so first and foremost, this is a separate account. It's not the regular checking account. It's not the regular savings account. It needs to be separate so that you can keep track of it. So having a separate account for this fund is probably the first thing that I want to mention. You're asking like, well, what kind of an account should I use? That really all depends on your financial situation, and if you want to have something that's going to get more interest, there's different types of options out there. You can probably keep it pretty simple. Mine is a regular savings account that's with my bank, the current bank that I have, so I can make it really easy to transfer funds, etc. No fees, yada yada. But I will say, ask your financial advisor what type of account to use in your specific financial situation and your stage of life, right? And then the next step for this, all right, I know that when you look at the number that you need for your emergency fund, whether you're setting something up for 3 months or for 6 months, seeing that number can like make your heart go like, if you haven't set up anything up. That's okay. So we start small, right? So here are a couple of tips that you can use when establishing this emergency fund. The first thing is make it automatic. Make this an absolute no-brainer, right? Make it something that is an automatic transfer that comes out every month so that there's no excuse about, why you didn't participate 1 month. So we're going to set that up. I did a bunch of research and looking at things. And if you have not set up an emergency fund yet, what the numbers that kept coming back up was around 10% of your income going into that emergency fund to build it. And so I know that can feel like, whoa, right? But think about it. You're already setting aside like 30 to 35% for your taxes, right? This opens up a much bigger conversation around pricing and making sure that we price our services in a way that is sustainable for your business and for your life. And I will go ahead and say that I think the vast majority of independent music teachers do not price themselves too low in order to make these types of things happen. And it's not judgment on them. It's judgment, honestly, it's judgment on our industry and just everything surrounding this starving artist mindset crap that gets, spread everywhere. And this idea that, oh, well, if so-and-so down the street charges this much, I can't possibly charge more. Right? It's toxic. So getting a hold of those numbers and getting really clear on what you would need in order to be able to support yourself if you could not work for 3 months can be very eye-opening. So if you are finding after crunching all those numbers that, holy cow, this is going to be impossible for me, it may be time to sit down with a financial advisor. It may be time to sit down with a business coach. If you're looking for a group program that will really empower you to get a hold of like your beastie bossness, I am part of a program that's going to start in April. It's called How to Run Your Business Without Hating Your Boss. It was created by Michelle Marquette DeVoe. We have 5 more spots left. It is a 10-month program that will really empower you. But if you are finding yourself like really in that space where you're not sure how to fix this, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. Okay, back to building the emergency fund, right? Make it a no-brainer. Make those automatic transfers and, get real about contributing each month. And then the final thoughts around this fund and making sure that it's going to work. If you use the emergency fund, then you need to replenish it. And then I had one more final tip to add to this. Look for opportunities that you may get some more money, right? You might have a really great month with summer camps. During that month, maybe it's time to set a little bit more aside into that emergency fund. Or if, no, most of us don't get this, if you get a tax refund, right? Most of us paying quarterlies don't see that. If you get a tax refund, that could be a perfect opportunity to start building that emergency fund. All right. I think that is all of, oh no, there's one final thing that I do want to mention here. It's kind of separate from this conversation, but it's related. So know what your business needs. Okay. So, if you are a multi-teacher business studio, there may be larger conversations around making sure that your business can be protected if you are unable to work, right? That is why it is so important to have a financial advisor, to have a lawyer, etc. That's a very different conversation than an independent music teacher. Know what your business needs, and also another point to this is to know what your insurances actually cover. There are possibilities out there for those who are self-employed to get disability insurance. Now, the bar is set higher for us because we need to be able to prove consistent income, like over a span of a certain number of years. Now, if you're already an established teacher, that can be simpler for you, right? If you're just getting going, it may be harder for you. And disability insurance is something that some states make it easier to access. So if that's something that you want to look into, it's kind of separate from this emergency fund idea, but I thought I'd mention it. Disability service is something that self-employed people can get a hold of. All right. So we're going to kind of wrap that up before we do our recap. If you have any takeaways from today that you would like to share, please let them, put them down below. I'll bring them up. Julie says, please don't make the mistake of thinking I'll never need to do this. This is great. Thank you, Karen. I know you were in the insurance business. She says, if you get disability insurance, purchase own occupation insurance and not any occupation insurance. Thank you for that. I really appreciate your advice. All right, so we're going to get to doing our recap for those of you who might have tuned in a little bit late. Before we do that, I will just say, if you found this conversation valuable today, you can show us some appreciation by giving us some of these guys and some of these guys by clicking those buttons and just letting people know about us. So if you want to spread the word, please do. I would really appreciate that. Okay, let's see. Let's get to our rapid recap. Yeah. Okay. See, Lisa, I'm so glad that you had that fund too. She said she had to use most of her emergency fund last year because of health issues. And yes, Cheryl. No, I think I said it right the first time. I might be wrong. We do price ourselves too low, so own your value. Fabulous. Thank you so much. All right, let's get to our rapid recap today. We're going to try to do this really fast. Let's see if we can do it. Give me a drum roll. All right, here we go. As someone who is self-employed, the job comes with a lot of perks, but it also comes with a lot of responsibilities. And in this recap, we're going to be talking about the financial ends of things. We're going to be talking about building an emergency fund. So if you are faced with an emergency, a health crisis, an accident, some type of unforeseen event that causes you to stop working, you will be okay. And so we're going to break this down into 3 areas. The first area is this. You need to know your budget. Before you calculate anything for an emergency fund, you actually need to know what your budget requires. So that's going to mean sitting down and calculating your income, calculating your expenses, any debts, any other financial situations that you need to be aware of. You can use a spreadsheet. You can use a pencil and paper. You can use a budgeting app, but get a hold of those numbers and really understand them first, right? This is going to allow us to set financial goals and to figure out what you're actually going to need for that emergency fund. The second item is to get clear on crunching those numbers. So we understand what the budget is, and now we're going to look at how can I create an emergency fund that is going to cover me for 3 months, for 6 months. You pick, right? Start with 3. That's fine. So there are many different tools out there that you can use. One of my favorite is from NerdWallet. They have an emergency fund calculator there. Use the calculator to figure out what is the minimum that I need. And remember, that's your starting point. You can continue to build that emergency fund until it gets to a place where you're going to feel comfortable. And yes, it will take time, but that's okay. If we are consistent, and we are persistent, we're going to be able to create that fund. So the third step is actually creating the fund, right? So first and foremost, this is an emergency fund. It needs its own separate space. So have a savings account that is specifically for that fund. Remember that this is an emergency fund and not a rainy day fund. A rainy day fund might be for like cars or, unexpected vet bills, etc., things like that. An emergency fund is when you are actually going to stop working and you need something you need income coming in. So have a separate account. If you need to know exactly what type of account to use, I would suggest talking to a financial advisor. And then the next step with this is to make it a no-brainer and to make it an automatic transfer that happens every month. And you will be able to figure out what percentage of income needs to go into that based on the numbers that you crunched before. And yes, it may take a while to build that emergency fund so that it's ready with that 3 months of income and like living expenses that you need. But it's never going to get there unless we start now. So if you are interested in getting a hold of resources that you can help you do this, if you drop the word funds down below, you're going to be able to get that from the Savvy Sara bot. We are going to wrap it up here. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them down below and I'll come back and answer them for you. Not a financial advisor, but I am someone that cares about getting the resources to you so that you can get the financial advice that you need. All right. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. We're going to, we'll be back next Wednesday, as always. And in the meantime, stay savvy and stay you, because you are an amazing teacher and there's no one in the world quite like you. And I think you're pretty dang awesome. So we will see you next time. Thanks for being here, everyone.